Karen made me believe I'd built my fence on her property. Turns out she was the one trespassing for 10 years. And when I exposed her lie, the entire HOA turned on her. I never imagined something as simple as a fence could start a full-blown war, but in my neighborhood, logic never stood a chance against Karen Miller. She lived 3 houses down, mid-50s, hair sprayed into place like a helmet, sunglasses that never came off, and that damn clipboard she carried like a sword. She wasn't just a neighbor, she was the self-proclaimed guardian of the HOA. And apparently my fence was her next crusade. It started on a Saturday morning, the kind of morning where I just wanted to drink my coffee and pretend adulthood wasn't real. I was halfway through my first sip when I heard the snap of a tape measure. I looked up and there she was, standing on the other side of my fence, measuring and mumbling to herself like a detective on a crime scene. "Do you realize," she shouted, "this fence is 2 feet onto my property?" At first I laughed. I thought she was joking. "Karen, this fence has been here since before either of us moved in." She crossed her arms. "That's what you think. I checked the records." Now anyone who's ever lived near a Karen knows exactly what that means. Checked the records, so she zoomed in on Google Maps once and decided she had a law degree. She stormed off, muttering something about encroachment and legal action. I brushed it off. Until the next morning when I walked outside and saw bright orange flags stabbed all over my yard like someone had tried to claim it for a foreign country. Then came the letter from the HOA. "You must remove the fence within 7 days." Signed by none other than Marlene, the HOA president, and Karen's best friend. I called immediately. "Marlene, what structure are we talking about?" She replied in that syrupy tone that sounds polite but feels like poison. "Your fence, Mr. Benson." Karen provided evidence. The evidence turned out to be a blurry photo and a Google Earth screenshot. I nearly choked laughing. But this wasn't funny anymore. Moving that fence would cost thousands. So I did the only logical thing. I hired an actual surveyor. His name was Jim. Calm, middle-aged, the kind of man who looked like he measured things for fun. Karen showed up the moment his truck pulled in, clutching her clipboard like she'd won the lottery. Finally, someone who can prove me right. Jim nodded politely and started setting up his tripod while Karen hovered over him like a mosquito that wouldn't quit. At one point she whispered, "When he confirms it's on my property, I'll expect you to move it immediately." No hard feelings. I smiled. None taken. An hour later, Jim finished his measurements, checked his notes, and said the words, "I will never forget." "According to county records, this fence is 2 feet inside your property line, perfectly legal." He turned to Karen. "Actually, ma'am, your shed extends about 18 inches onto his land." Karen froze. "What?" Jim showed her the map, plain as day. She went pale, muttered something about old measurements, and marched back inside without another word. I thought that was it. I thought logic had finally won. But with Karen, logic only makes her angrier. A few days later, another envelope appeared on my door stamped with the HOA logo like it was an eviction notice. "Due to recent boundary concerns, the HOA will review all property lines within the community. Homeowners must submit proof within 10 business days." Oh, it wasn't about fairness. It was about revenge. I went to the HOA office, which, by the way, was just a glorified shed behind the clubhouse that smelled like burnt coffee and ego. Marlene sat there pretending to shuffle papers. "So I said, you're auditing the entire neighborhood because Karen doesn't like my fence. This is about fairness, Mr. Benson," she said, smiling that HOA smile that should be illegal. "Fairness," I repeated. "Or Karen's feelings." Her smile twitched. By the end of the week, everyone was furious, not at me, but at her. The neighborhood Facebook group exploded. If Karen wants to move fences, she can move mine herself. This is why no one invites her to block parties. Karen didn't care. She showed up at my door again wearing a reflective vest this time like she was leading a construction crew. She handed me a map she claimed came from the city archives. It was drawn in colored pencil. North pointed sideways. My fence was labeled in crayon. "Karen," I said, trying not to laugh, "this looks like something a second grader made for art class." "It's an original plat map," she snapped. I pulled up the real one from the county's website and placed it beside hers. "Then why does yours have your name written in bubble letters?" She yanked it back and stormed off. I told myself to ignore her. I tried. But then came the HOA meeting, the one that changed everything. I wasn't even planning to go. My neighbor bribed me with cookies. But halfway through the meeting, Karen stood up and shouted, "This community has been living under false assumptions. I have proof the boundaries are all wrong." She waved a folder around like she'd uncovered a government conspiracy. Everyone laughed until she slammed a paper down with official-looking stamps. For one terrifying second, I thought she'd actually found something real. Then one of my neighbors, a retired city engineer, leaned in and squinted. "Karen," he said slowly, "those stamps are from the Parks Department. And, is this font Comic Sans?" You could hear the laughter echo all the way down the hall. Karen turned red, snatched her papers, and ran out muttering about corruption. I thought that would finally end it. It didn't. 2 days later, I got a call from the county assessor's office. Mr. Benson, the clerk, said, "Did you authorize a woman named Karen Miller to file boundary corrections on your behalf?" I nearly dropped my coffee. "Absolutely not." The clerk sighed. "We didn't think so. She submitted her own survey sketch. In crayon." That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just harassment. It was delusion. And it was time to end it. Still, I had a dark night of doubt. One of those moments where exhaustion catches up. I sat on my porch, staring at the fence, wondering if it was even worth it. Maybe I should just let it go, let her win. The HOA had money connections, and I just had common sense. But then I remembered all the neighbors she'd bullied. The ones who'd been fined, shamed, or forced to move their sheds because of her lies. I thought, if I don't stop her now, she'll just find another victim. That was all the motivation I needed. I went down to the county office and started digging. I spent hours flipping through old plat records until I found it the smoking gun. 10 years ago, the property lines in our subdivision had been corrected after a developer error. And guess who signed off on the correction? Karen Miller. My jaw dropped. She had known the truth all along. She wasn't mistaken, she'd been lying. I printed every page, every stamp, every signature, and put it all into a binder thicker than her HOA rulebook. Then I waited for the next meeting. That night the room was packed. People brought popcorn. Karen strutted in late sunglasses on clipboard in hand like she was the star of her own reality show. Before she could even sit, I stood up. "Before we start," I said, "I'd like to present some documents." Marlene frowned. "That's not on the agenda." "It will be." I dropped the binder on the table with a heavy thud. These are county-verified plats showing that Karen Miller herself signed off on the current boundaries June 14, 2013. The room went silent. I kept going. For 10 years she's accused her neighbors of encroachment while knowing full well she approved the correction. Someone in the back yelled, "She did this to me too." Another voice shouted, "And me. She made me move my shed." Suddenly the meeting turned into a courtroom. People waving their HOA fines in the air, yelling over each other. Karen's face turned bright red. "Those documents are forged." I slid one across the table. Funny, because the county clerk confirmed them this morning. She grabbed it, looked down, and froze. Her signature was right there in black ink. Marlene leaned over and whispered something to her, but Karen just snapped. "You think this proves anything? I am the HOA?" The room erupted. Someone shouted, "Not anymore, you're not." The board, desperate to save face, held an emergency vote right then and there. In less than 5 minutes, Karen was officially removed from her position. She stood there trembling, then stormed out, muttering something about forming her own association. 2 weeks later, poetic justice arrived. A city inspector showed up at her house, clipboard in hand. He measured her shed, nodded, and slapped a bright orange notice on her door. Structure must be relocated or removed. Karen argued, of course. Claimed I'd moved the earth to change the property line. The inspector didn't even blink. "Ma'am," he said, "the planet doesn't rotate that fast." That weekend I watched from my porch as she hired movers to drag her shed 2 feet to the left. Every hammer strike echoed like karma itself. The neighborhood felt lighter after that. Marlene quietly stepped down. The new HOA sent an apology letter to everyone. And Karen, she moved out a month later. Rumor has it she joined another HOA in a different county. I wish them luck. Sometimes I still sit on my porch sipping coffee, looking at that same fence, standing exactly where it's always been. It's more than wood and nails now. It's proof that truth, no matter how buried, always finds its way to the surface. Because in the end, even the strongest walls can't protect a liar from the truth.